Standing high above the clouds on the island of Hawaii, Maunakea is known to millions around the world. Peaking at over 32,000 feet above the ocean floor, this majestic mauna is the tallest sea mountain on Earth. This isolated summit that rises well above city lights and even above the clouds sits in the crisp, dry atmosphere, creating a unique environment for observing the stars, and as a result, has become host to the world's largest collection of observatories advancing significant discoveries in the study of the universe. What this mauna embodies and has come to symbolize is grounded first and foremost, however, in its familial and spiritual significance for Native Hawaiians.
Maunakea is our oldest kupuna. Wakea, the god of the sky, and his mate Papa, or Papa Hanaumoku, the earth, they created our landscapes, and our old chant specifically says, Hanau ka mauna he makahiapo kapuna kea. Born is the mountain, and it's the oldest child of Wakea. We're taught that to every place there's a reason and a purpose, and everything belongs in its place. We have what we call wau, and so they're realms, and we have wau akua, things that belong to the akua there. You have wau nahele, where things that are nahele, or things that are in the forest, belongs there. And all the way down to you have wau kanaka, where the people belong. And so these realms are like boundary lines for us. You know, as Kanaka, we wouldn't be able to survive in the wau akua. We can maybe visit the summits, but we can't live there. Our bodies are not physically capable to live in that kind of element, in that high elevation. And so it's letting us know that that's not our place. I think the message really is to travel with ho'ihi and have respect when you do things, and to know that that place is somebody's place. And if it's not your place, then at least be respectful when you enter into those areas.
Lake Wai'o, one of these revered places atop the Mauna, is a wonder in and of itself as it sits on the slopes of what was once an active volcano. How does a lake, this one being at the highest elevation in the northern hemisphere, end up on a volcano? The answer lies in another phenomenon, the fact that Maunakea was also host to glaciers in the past.
Glaciation, or ice ages, as they're often referred to, are times when glaciers cover significant parts of the continents. Over the last million years or so, there have been 10 or so stages of advance and retreat of glaciers. We're in a time when we're in between that glacial period. But when we're in a glacial period, in places like Hawaii, which we're not going to see the extent of those big continental ice sheets, we still might have the potential to grow glaciers on the high mountains. One of the things that glaciers do is they're really great at pulverizing rock and grinding it up. In the process of doing that, you also generate some very fine-grained material that can act as a barrier for water. Around Lake Wai'o, there's kind of a clay layer, likely the result of some sort of glacial process up there. And that's acting as the seal that keeps the water in the space. So the lake itself grows and shrinks depending on how much water falls from the sky.
Maunakea was still an active volcano during these ice ages, and during the eruptions of those times, the stone that came out cooled very quickly, making for a small, dense mineral structure, and when broken down and skillfully carved, was very useful for making tools such as ko'i, otherwise known as adze.
The Maunakea Adze Quarry is the largest known adze quarry in the Pacific, and it probably rivals a few others that are known around the world for indigenous stone quarrying places. If you picture getting up to Maunakea and working up there, there's lots of evidence that people stayed for long enough that they built shelters, that they were in rock shelters, that they brought up cooking materials and eating materials. So they were staying there. No one knows exactly how long each person stayed there, but it seems to make sense that people would have gone when the weather was good, or when there was a command that came down from a mo'i, like, we're going to build this new heiau at, Hapaiali'i or Ke'eku, and we need a whole bunch of new ki'ila'ao, and if we're going to do that, we need to get a whole bunch of new ko'i.
In addition to Mauna Kea's extraordinary physical environment that embodies these unique sights and elements, this mauna is also home to many native species of flora and fauna, and even a few endemic, meaning that this mauna is their only home.
The different species that exist here, endemic species like mamane, we have ileahi, koa, nile as the main tree species. Then we have a plethora of shrub species, aveoveo, a'ali'i, ulei, ilima, pukiave, throughout the span from 5,000 and even lower up to skyline and above. And can't forget the crown flower on the top, hina, such a beautiful meakanu, and garnered by the beautiful palila, a manu oiwi that no longer exists anywhere else in the world. The numbers are a mere about 1,000, maybe 1,200, depending on the year. Palila at one point would be spread across the entirety of Maunakea, across the saddle here to the slopes of Mauna Loa and even Hualalai at one point. But now their area is constricted just to above where we are now in a few hundred hectares. Palila rely on mamani. They rely on the immature seed pods of mamani. And unfortunately, they don't like to just go and get all of the nourishment they need from an individual tree. The problem with that is if your food source is threatened, then so is your existence, your entire existence. So we're focusing on restoring these areas back to aid in supplementing the upper subalpine dry forest ecosystems. We provide a lot of opportunities throughout the year for the community to come out and literally get your hands in the dirt to help plant some trees, right? We try to put in at least 30,000 trees a year into the ground to help restore certain areas of Mauna Kea. If you aloha aina or you aloha the mauna, then, if possible, that would be a great way. If you cannot do that, support others that can. Just having aloha for that mauna and being in awe of it and just, looking at it from afar and having good thoughts and sending good mana, that's plenty as well. That's plenty too.
Due in no small part to this precious natural environment, one of Mauna Kea's most recent wonders has been the development of the world's most scientifically productive collection of astronomical observatories.
One of the amazing things about Mauna Kea observatories collectively is that year after year they are #1 in terms of their scientific product as gauged by other observatory sites around the world. So it's an incredible range of telescopes with different capabilities from radio all the way through ultraviolet. It's very common to have the same object looked at multiple times with different telescopes, sometimes at the same time. And then you can do all kinds of really neat experiments because now you're actually using all the telescopes together in a coordinated way. It's an incredible accomplishment, if you will, for the Mauna Kea observatories that we're able to not just be competitive, but we literally lead the world in our scientific product year after year. The secret is Mauna Kea. It gives the observatories, if you will, an incredible competitive edge with regard to all of the observatories around the world. That's traceable to the unusual shape of Mauna Kea as a big shield volcano that's 14,000 feet tall. The very smooth, we call it laminar flow of air from the trade winds over the top of Mauna Kea. That means we have built in much clearer images, much what we call much better seeing than other observatories around the world.
Hundreds of astronomers have had the honor and privilege of contributing to the research done from Mauna Kea for decades, which has led not only to personal and corporate accolades and recognition, but the fulfillment of a lifelong draw to the wonders of the heavens.
My passion for astronomy started really young. I grew up out in the middle of the desert in Australia, where it's so close to the galaxy, you can read a book by starlight. And I think that nearly every astronomer, and I think nearly everyone can remember that first time when you looked up at the stars and you just went, wow. The stories of our universe have been traveling here for millions of years. It seems a tragedy that all of this light has arrived here, having all of these incredible adventures, and we don't look up and catch it. For me, it's almost a requirement of my soul that I build things that collect some of these stories and not let them be lost. That's where my passion comes from. There is nowhere on the surface of this earth where the stories of our universe arrive to us so untouched, so pristine, so perfect. And the more I have the privilege of listening to Hawaiian cosmology, that's all there. That understanding has been here for so long. And so that's the importance and the privilege of any kind of work on Maunakea, is to not just respect that, not just protect that, but to deepen your understanding and everyone else's understanding of what that means because of just how special this place is.
Maunakea's storied past extends even to how the state holds title to these lands today. Title rooted in Kingdom of Hawaii lands that by constitutional law the state holds in trust for Native Hawaiians and the general public.
I definitely don't think most people in Hawaii, including our decision makers, appreciate how the federal and state government came to own most of its public lands, including the lands on Maunakea. 1840s, Kauikeaoli enacts the kingdom's first written constitution. And in that constitution, it's recognized that the lands belong to the chief and the people, and the king is sort of the overseer, a trustee, if you will. Kauikeaoli also endeavors to divide up all of Hawaii's lands, and at the end of that process, which many refer to as the mahele, the king ends up with nearly 1 million acres of land, and the government ends up with nearly 1.5 million acres of land. And collectively, we now characterize those lands as the Crown and Government lands. In 1898, 5 years after the overthrow of the kingdom, the United States asserts to annex Hawaii to the United States, and approximately 1.8 million acres of Crown and Government lands are transferred to the United States. However, the Organic Act specifically recognized that these lands will still be held in trust for the people. Consistent with these trust concepts in the Admissions Act, which admits Hawaii into the United States as a state, the Public Land Trust is created, and approximately 1.4 million acres, again, of the Crown and Government lands are put into trust. And these lands are transferred to the state, including the lands on Maunakea. In the case of Maunakea, these lands are both ceded lands and Public Land Trust lands that Native Hawaiians continue to assert claims to and that are held in trust for Native Hawaiians as one of the Public Land Trust beneficiaries. And so today, there are various government agencies charged with managing thousands of acres on Maunakea, which again are comprised of Public Land Trust lands and ceded lands.
There's roughly, well over 100,000 acres that are managed by multiple public entities. So I'll start with the UH managed lands. Up at the summit, there's well over 11,000 acres managed by UH in 3 basic areas: the mid-level facilities at Halepuhaku, the Summit Access Road corridor, and also the Science Reserve, which does incorporate the Astronomy Precinct, which is over 500 acres at the summit area. Now, outside of the UH managed lands, the Department of Land and Natural Resources Division of Forestry and Wildlife manages several different types of land designations. The Maunakea Ice Age Natural Area Reserve, and then there's also the Maunakea Forest Reserve, which is well over 50,000 acres. It encompasses the entire circumference of Maunakea as well. Now below that, there's also Department of Hawaiian Homelands, and they manage over 56,000 acres. And then the Department of Transportation manages the access road from the Saddle Road area. The University of Hawaii leases the Science Reserve and UH managed lands from the Board of Land and Natural Resources. UH is responsible for all management actions and regulations within the UH managed lands, and actually has a set of administrative rules that apply to the UH managed lands, along with several plans. University of Hawaii has a master plan that oversees the uses within the UH managed lands, along with the comprehensive management plan, which oversees all of the management actions. So within the UH managed areas, UH has oversight of all of the activities and implementing the administrative rules. Now, the close neighbors of DLNR, Division of Forestry and Wildlife, with those two designations of Natural Area Reserve and Forest Reserve, actually have their own set of administrative rules as well. So anybody accessing Maunakea needs to really be sure they understand what portion of land they're on and making sure they're really complying with the administrative rules of the area. Along with those, land management administrative rules, there's also other regulatory factors to consider, such as the conservation district rules and the state historic preservation rules and other jurisdictions such as, criminal law, etc. The Center for Maunakea Stewardship, which was established in 2020, which was formerly the Office of Maunakea Management, is the main entity at the university that oversees the UH managed lands, from implementing the Comprehensive Management Plan and the UH Master Plan to overseeing stewardship activities. They also oversee the Halipohaku mid-level facilities, and they're really there to ensure the safety of people as well by overseeing Maunakea Support Services and the rangers. The Institute for Astronomy is a research unit out of the University of Hawaii at Manoa, but they also have offices on Maui and here on Hawaii Island. They're the main research entity and actually manage some of the observatories on the mountain as well. So the Center for Maunakea Stewardship, along with the Institute for Astronomy, have a key partnership in management on Maunakea.
For the collective of agencies and divisions, and specifically their staff who spend their days atop the Mauna maintaining the facilities and roadways and helping visitors, one of the critical priorities is ensuring everyone's safety.
We are the first line of defense. We need to inform them as to what they can expect to see on the mountain, how they should behave on the mountain, what to do, what not to do, and just basically be safe for themselves. Everybody needs to stop at the visitor station for about 30 minutes to get acclimated, because what's happening is people are going from sea level to 14,000 in about an hour and a half can cause some serious problems with the body. It's important to know also that different people respond in different ways to symptoms like lightheadedness, dizzy, shortness of breath, nausea. The best solution is to turn around immediately, go down to a lower elevation right away. Coming to the visitor station, you can come in any vehicle, two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive, motorcycle, bicycle. It's a paved road. It is steep, but it is relatively safe. For those who want to go past the visitor station towards the summit, they are required to have a four-wheel drive vehicle. And the reason for that is twofold. One is the road is very steep, and the first 4.5, 5 miles are gravel road. Those gravel miles can be dangerous. It is recommended that they drive on 4 low, both on the way up and on the way down, and especially on the way down to drive on low gears to ensure that the vehicle's speed is controlled as much as possible by the engine and not by the brakes. Luckily, we have the rangers as part of our team, and they are a key component in maintaining the safety on the mountain. They stop and talk to every visitor who's going to go past the visitor station, make sure they have the right vehicle, make sure they have enough gas, make sure that they know how to drive a four-wheel drive vehicle, and they also do rounds up on the mountain to make sure everybody is following the rules. When you go to any national park or any protected area, they want you to stay on the trails. It's no different here for safety reasons, but also for protection of the cultural and the natural resources around the mountain. Weather will change drastically in no time, so it's important to be able to dress up in layers so you can add or remove according to the conditions. Sun exposure is much more aggressive at higher elevation than lower below, so make sure you wear a proper hat, plenty of sunscreen. Dehydration is very real at high elevations. Your body loses water at a much faster pace than you do at lower elevations, and you don't feel it. So people will dehydrate very rapidly without noticing, so we always make sure that we let them know to constantly drink water, more water than they're used to, and if they're going to go on a long hike, make sure they have plenty of water with them. It's important to wear hiking boots, sturdy, that have protection to the ankles. If possible, don't hike alone. There are places that are cultural sites that to the untrained eye may not look as such, and people will come and want to reaccommodate rocks or move them. So it's very important we let them know not to do that. Stay on the trail, and that's a sure way to avoid any damage to any of these delicate and significant sites. Taking care of the mountain, the rangers and the vis staff were the first line of defense. We're there to inform the visitors of what to do, but it falls on everybody's hands. It's everybody's kuleana to take care of this delicate mountain.
This awe-inspiring Mauna means so much to so many, but for those who see and know Maunakea as ohana, as a space that demands reverence and respect, the duty to protect and ensure this sense of veneration is what has and continues to draw them to these slopes.
For me, it'll go all the way back to our family Aina being right on the flanks of the mountain in an area called Kamoku. Kamoku is the space that my grandfather set aside, my dad's dad set aside for us to be able to be reared in, to grow up in. And his journey for us really was one as Packer Ranch cowboy, but then the other thing too was as a hunter-gatherer. And so from a very young age, we would always spend time up on the flanks of the mountain, not necessarily ever at the top, because that wasn't where our kuleana was. We had kuleana to the fact that the space that we accessed fed us. And so when you think about that, there's a reciprocity, right? So our responsibility then is to make sure and to ensure as stewards, if you will, but more especially as individuals and families who have a pilina to the mountain, to be able to give back for any reason. Do I believe in the technology of astronomy? Yes. Do I believe in the technology of observatory? Yes. Not because it has a potential relationship to the canoes that we sail. That is not the same thing as voyaging on the ocean. One is to look into the ether and beyond and to study for a certain point and reason. On the ocean, we utilize the entire space around us, not just the heavenly space above us. You need all of the layers of the ocean, of the wave, of the current, of the wind, of the performance of the canoe and the crew, coupled with the celestial bodies and all of the small pinnacles of light to be able to get us home. It's the same thing up here. So with a mountain, you can utilize the observatories, you can utilize all of those technologies, and if they're in alignment with the spirit of the place and of the people, then you have a functioning space that works absolutely well for everybody, not just for a set group of people.
Grounded in this Hawaiian way of viewing the world and the importance of pilina, or relationships, giving voice to various groups who have a sincere aloha for this Mauna was at the genesis of developing the world's only indigenous bilingual science center right here in Hilo, Hawaii.
It took 5 years to build Imiloa, to plan for it and to build it so that it could be available for the public. And in those 5 years, arguably, that was the first time in history where diverse stakeholders came to collaborate at the same table on a mission of building this educational center for the community. There needed to be a space or a container where these different perspectives came together to learn from each other, to teach each other, and ultimately to expand perspectives beyond siloed views and connections of the importance of Maunakea. Imiloa exists today because of Maunakea. I think because of all that Maunakea stands for, the origins and the connections that it provides us as Hawaiian people, we are providing a place of education for all to come and access, and hopefully encourage future generations to continue along our deep Hawaiian value and tradition really of exploration, which is where Imiloa, the name of the center, came from. So when I see my son and other Hawaii keiki running through Imiloa, I am excited and inspired by them at the confidence that they have going through the ton of information that Imiloa has through its exhibits, and seeing them engage in it as if it's a, yep, we know this. This is our backyard, or that's our mauna, or that's the native species that lives in, the forests, native forests of Maunakea. That is where the wola, or the excitement is watching our kids go through here and none of it being foreign to them. It is who they are and what they know. And this confidence that I see exuded from them is just so amazing to know that this generation will be the next leaders of this place. And I am incredibly optimistic in that their foundation has now been reinforced by their Hawaiian connection to this Hawaii place.
And with all that this place, this mauna, has come to mean to so many, from its cultural and spiritual significance to its rich natural resources and landscape that hosts the most pristine views of the heavens, most important is our kuleana to these future generations and how we malama and aloha ya Maunakea ku kila kila.